There comes a moment when your power isn't in what you say, it's in what you refuse to entertain. When someone treats you like you're easy to replace, the strongest move you can make is to walk away like they're nobody, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. That's where your real power begins. When someone treats you like you're optional, like your presence in their life is something they can pick up and put down whenever they feel like it, there comes a moment where explaining yourself becomes pointless. You could talk for hours about how you feel, how you deserve better, how their behavior affects you, but none of it lands. Not because your feelings aren't real, but because they're not listening with the intention to understand. They're listening with the intention to continue exactly as they are. And that's the moment when silence becomes the most powerful thing you can offer. Silence is not passive. It is not weakness. It is a conscious decision to stop pouring energy into someone who only takes it for granted. When you stop explaining, you stop feeding the dynamic that keeps you stuck. You stop trying to convince someone to value you. You stop trying to audition for the role of someone they should have already recognized as irreplaceable. There is a strength in your quiet that words can't match, because your silence says, "I see what this is, and I'm done participating." Walking away without a dramatic exit or emotional breakdown forces a person to confront their own behavior. When you stop responding, they are left with themselves, no distraction, no extra chances, no emotional cushion softening the impact of their choices. And that's when reality hits them. You weren't the one who needed them, they were the one benefiting from your presence. But most people don't realize the value of something until it's no longer there for them to misuse. Your silence becomes the mirror they can't hide from. It reflects back their inconsistency, their lack of effort, their emotional laziness. When you're no longer there explaining, repeating, asking for the bare minimum, they are left to wonder why the access they took for granted has suddenly disappeared. And the truth is, you didn't disappear. You simply stopped offering your time to someone who didn't know how to treat it. There is a dignity in choosing not to over-explain. When someone shows you who they are, it's not your job to rewrite the story. It's your job to read it clearly and decide whether it aligns with your standards. Silence is the moment you stop rewriting, stop negotiating, and stop pretending that their behavior is anything other than what it is. You walk away because your peace matters more than their confusion, your self-respect matters more than their comfort, and your future matters more than their temporary role in your present. Most people mistake silence for indifference, but the truth is more powerful than that. Silence is mastery. It's the knowing that not everything deserves a reaction. It's the understanding that sometimes the strongest statement you can make is refusing to make one at all. You don't need to convince someone to treat you right. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who only sees you when it's convenient. Trying to be understood by the wrong person is the quickest way to lose yourself. When you choose silence, you reclaim your emotional energy. You create space for clarity. You stop living in the cycle of hoping they'll change and start stepping into the reality of what you truly deserve. Your silence becomes the doorway to a new chapter, a chapter where your value isn't debated, where your worth isn't questioned, where your heart isn't mishandled by someone too distracted or too selfish to hold it properly. And here's the final truth. People feel silence more deeply than they ever feel words. Words they can argue with, words they can dismiss, words they can twist, but silence forces them to sit with the consequences of losing someone who finally chose themselves. Walking away is often misunderstood as a sign of defeat, but the truth is the complete opposite. When you remove yourself from someone who doesn't value you, you're not losing anything, you're reclaiming everything. You're not breaking down, you're breaking free. People assume that the one who walks away is the one who couldn't handle it. But in reality, the one who stays and tolerates disrespect is the one who pays the real price. Walking away is the moment you stop discounting yourself for someone who doesn't deserve access to you at full price. It's easy to stay. It's easy to keep giving chances. It's easy to hope they'll suddenly realize what they have in front of them. But hope can become a prison when the person you're hoping for is incapable of growth. When you finally choose yourself over the chaos of their mixed signals, their inconsistency, or their lack of effort, you reveal something powerful, your value. You show that your love is a privilege, not a consolation prize, and that privilege can only be given to someone who knows how to hold it. You don't lose value when you walk away, you expose it. Think of it like a painting in a museum. The art doesn't beg to be appreciated. It doesn't chase anyone who walks past distracted. It stands there in its worth, and the people capable of seeing its beauty stop, pay attention, and admire it. The problem is when you place yourself in someone's life who has the emotional maturity of a child. They don't know how to appreciate what stands in front of them. Walking away is not about punishment. It's about repositioning yourself where your value can actually be seen. There's a turning point in every emotionally draining connection where you realize you're the only one showing up. You're the one making space, initiating conversations, giving reassurance, offering patience, and trying to build a bond. Meanwhile, they're giving you crumbs and acting like feeding you those crumbs is a favor. That's the moment your self-worth wakes up. And once it wakes up, you can't unsee the truth. You deserve more than being someone's afterthought. Walking away isn't the loss. Staying there, shrinking yourself, adjusting your standards, and settling for someone's half-hearted effort, that is the loss. So when you finally leave, you're not losing them. You're losing the version of yourself that tolerated what wasn't meant for you. That version needed validation. That version accepted excuses. That version stayed longer than they should have. But the version that walks away, that's the version that understands their own value. You reveal your worth through action, not debate. You can tell someone 1,000 times how deeply you love, how much you care, how willing you are to work things out. But if they can't reciprocate, those words are wasted breath. Walking away is the moment you stop negotiating your worth with someone unequipped to value it. It sends a message without you having to utter a single word. I know what I bring to the table, and I won't sit where I'm not respected. And the irony is, once you walk away, that's usually when the other person sees it clearly. Not because they suddenly changed, but because the absence of your energy exposes how much they were benefiting from it. Your consistency, your loyalty, your effort, none of it was small. They just needed to feel the loss to understand the weight of what they had. They often mistake your presence as guaranteed, and your departure cracks their illusion of entitlement. You walking away becomes the lesson they didn't know they needed. But the beauty is this: the moment you leave is also the moment you rise. You step into a life where your worth isn't questioned, where your energy isn't drained, and where your heart isn't mishandled. Walking away doesn't just reveal your value to them, it reveals it to you. And once you truly see your worth, you never again settle for someone who couldn't see it. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. People think it means you no longer care, that you've become cold, that you've stopped feeling anything. But real detachment isn't about shutting down emotionally. It's about refusing to let your emotions be controlled by someone who hasn't earned that power. It's choosing to hold your center instead of reacting to every inconsistency, every mixed signal, every moment of ambiguity they create. When you detach, you don't stop loving. You stop leaking your energy into places where it's not valued. There is a version of you that reacts instantly, that answers every message within seconds, that worries about what he's thinking, that overanalyzes every shift in his tone or behavior. That version of you is emotionally invested but emotionally unprotected. Detachment is the shield that protects you from being pulled around by someone's unpredictable attention. It says, I feel, but I don't collapse. I care, but I don't cling. I'm present, but I'm not powerless. When you detach, you take yourself off the emotional roller coaster he unconsciously, or sometimes intentionally, keeps you on. You stop waiting for validation. You stop craving reassurance from the very person who makes you insecure. You stop reacting to the highs and the lows he uses to keep you hooked. Detachment gives you clarity. You see the situation without the fog of longing, without the fantasy you created in your mind, without the excuses you kept inventing for his behavior. With clarity, you regain your ability to choose what's right for you, instead of hoping he finally becomes who you wished he was. The moment you detach, something interesting happens. He loses the control he never openly admitted he had. When a man senses he can provoke a reaction from you, through silence, inconsistency, or bare minimum effort, he knows he holds a certain influence. But when you stop responding to that pattern, you break the dynamic. Your calmness becomes unsettling to him. He's used to your urgency, your emotional availability, your willingness to respond to even the smallest breadcrumb he throws your way. Your new emotional neutrality becomes something he can't predict, and therefore something he can't manipulate. Detachment makes you unpredictable in the best way. You're no longer affected by his mood swings. You're not thrown off by his sudden attention or random withdrawal. You stop spiraling when he pulls back and stop overinvesting when he comes close. Your emotional world becomes your responsibility again, not his playground. And when you reach that place, he starts feeling the shift. He starts noticing that his usual behaviors don't work the way they used to. The power dynamic tilts, not because you're playing games, but because you've reclaimed your emotional independence. Detachment also creates curiosity. When you're no longer chasing, he starts wondering why. When you're no longer reacting, he starts evaluating his actions. When you no longer seem emotionally dependent on him, he starts trying to understand what changed. And that's where real power lies, not in making him feel insecure, but in reminding yourself that your emotions are yours to manage, not his to manipulate. The beauty of detachment is that it brings you back to yourself. You start focusing on your goals, your peace, your life. You invest in friendships, passions, routines, and joy that don't revolve around him. Your world becomes bigger than his attention. You start remembering what it feels like to be full without relying on someone's inconsistent presence to make you feel seen. Ultimately, detachment isn't the end of caring. It's the beginning of self-respect. It's the moment you stop allowing someone to dictate your emotional state. It's where you stand firm in your worth without needing anyone to validate it. And when you reach that place, you move through life with a calm confidence that no one, not even the person you once cared deeply for, can disturb. Sometimes walking away has nothing to do with punishing someone or proving a point. It isn't about showing him what he lost or trying to trigger his realization. It's about giving yourself something he never gave you: space. Space to breathe, to think clearly, to reconnect with who you are outside of the emotional chaos he brought into your life. Because when you're caught in the cycle of waiting for consistency from someone who doesn't know how to give it, your world becomes small. Everything in your life shrinks down to the size of his attention, and that isn't love, that's suffocation. When you finally decide to step back, something powerful happens. Your mind starts to quiet down, the overthinking slows, the emotional confusion begins to lift. You begin to see patterns that were invisible when you were emotionally entangled. You start noticing all the moments you compromised, all the times you accepted less, all the ways you squeezed yourself into a space that was too small for the size of your heart. Distance becomes clarity. It reminds you that love is not supposed to feel like guessing, waiting, questioning, or trying to prove your worth. Being close to someone who doesn't value you creates emotional noise. And noise keeps you from hearing your instincts. It drowns out your intuition. It makes you doubt what you already knew deep down, that you deserved more than the bare minimum he was offering. But the moment you walk away, the noise fades. For the first time in a long time, you can hear yourself again. You reconnect with the part of you that knows your standards, that knows your boundaries, that remembers your worth. That's why walking away feels like oxygen after holding your breath for too long. Distance also reveals the reality of the relationship without the fantasy. When you're emotionally attached, you tend to focus on potential instead of patterns. You see who he could be, not who he consistently is. You cling to the good moments while ignoring the ones that left you drained and confused, but space removes the emotional filter. It shows you the truth without your heart trying to soften it. You begin to realize that the relationship wasn't failing because you weren't enough. It was failing because he wasn't capable. When you walk away, your life starts expanding again. You have time for yourself. You rediscover passions, friendships, priorities that were pushed aside because you were too busy managing your emotions around him. You feel lighter. You wake up without that knot in your stomach. You start smiling for no reason. You remember what peace feels like. And once peace re-enters your life, you realize how chaotic he truly was. The beautiful thing about walking away is that it creates emotional space for better things to enter your life. When you hold on to someone who drains you, you block the energy, love, and opportunities that were meant for you. But the moment you let go, you open the door for something healthier, something reciprocal, something real. You stop settling for chemistry and start craving compatibility. You stop longing for attention and start valuing consistency. You stop chasing someone who doesn't choose you and start attracting someone who will. And here's the truth people don't talk about enough. Walking away isn't just about losing him. It's about finding you. It's about returning to the version of yourself who was confident, grounded, passionate, and peaceful. The version of you who existed before you made yourself small for someone who didn't know how to love you well. When you walk away, you don't shrink. You expand, your world gets bigger, your future gets brighter, and your heart finally gets the chance to heal in a place where it's no longer being harmed. For so long, you were conditioned to believe that getting his attention was the prize, that his texts, his effort, his sudden bursts of affection somehow validated you. You treated his interest like a reward and his inconsistency like a challenge you needed to overcome. But the truth is much simpler. He was never the prize, you are. Your standards, your boundaries, your emotional maturity, these are the real treasures, not his unpredictable attention or his half-hearted attempts at affection. When you finally walk away, it becomes painfully clear that what you were offering was far more valuable than what you were getting. We live in a world where attention is cheap. People give it 1 minute and take it away the next. Anyone can send a good morning text. Anyone can flirt. Anyone can show up when they're bored or lonely. Attention means nothing when it isn't backed by consistency, effort, and integrity. That's why putting someone on a pedestal simply because they noticed you for a moment sets you up for heartbreak. Your standards are what protect you. They're the filter that prevents you from accepting crumbs and calling it connection. When you walk away, you stop treating his bare minimum like it's gold. You stop seeing his mixed signals as something you need to decode. You stop trying to be understanding of behavior that you would never allow from anyone else. Walking away is the moment you remember that your love is a high value investment. And not everyone deserves access to that level of emotional wealth. Someone who wanted the privilege of being close to you should have shown it through consistent action, not convenient affection. Your standards are not demands, they're boundaries rooted in self-respect. They say, if you want access to me, you need to show up in a way that doesn't disrupt my peace. They're not walls meant to keep people out, they're gates meant to let the right people in. The problem comes when you start lowering those standards to accommodate someone who isn't willing to rise to meet them. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you teach them how little effort is required to keep you around. Walking away sends a different message. I don't compete for the love I'm supposed to receive freely. You walk away because you refuse to argue for the bare minimum. You refuse to chase someone who isn't choosing you. You refuse to stay where your emotional needs are dismissed. That's not weakness, it's emotional intelligence. It's knowing the difference between someone who wants you and someone who only wants the benefits of your presence. The moment you step back, you start to see things from a place of clarity instead of longing. You start asking different questions. Not why doesn't he value me, but why am I considering someone who doesn't value consistency, honesty, or respect? You begin to see that the wrong person can never give you the right love, no matter how much potential you imagined in them. And that realization becomes a new standard. You will no longer settle for someone who makes you feel insecure, confused, or unworthy. Eventually, you start to understand that the right person won't make you question your worth. They won't play games. They won't leave you guessing. They won't make you fight for the bare minimum. They will meet you at the level you stand, not pull you down to meet them where they are. And when you meet someone like that, you'll look back and realize that the one you walked away from wasn't a loss. He was a reminder of what you should never accept again. The real prize was never his attention. It was your ability to walk away from anything that fails to meet your standards. It was your courage to choose dignity over desperation. It was your strength to say, if this doesn't align with my worth, I'm done. That's the real victory. That's your power, and that's what protects your heart going forward. There's a moment after you walk away when everything shifts, not just for you, but for him too. At first, he may pretend he doesn't care. He might act unbothered, post like he's living his best life, or carry on as if nothing has changed. But beneath that surface, something cracks. Because when a woman who once cared deeply suddenly stops needing him, stops reacting, stops reaching out, his ego feels the loss long before his heart ever does. Your absence hits in a way your presence never could, not because he valued you properly, but because his ego depended on the control he had over your emotions. Your emotional availability was something he always counted on. He got used to the idea that you would answer, that you would care, that you would be affected by every little thing he did or didn't do. Even when he didn't give his best, he still had the comfort of knowing you were there. But when you walk away with calmness, without a fight, without drama, something inside him starts to panic. Ego thrives on attachment. Ego thrives on knowing it has influence. When that influence disappears, ego feels threatened. This panic doesn't always show up as a grand gesture or an apology. Sometimes it shows up as him circling back, checking your stories, liking your posts, sending a casual "hey" or "how have you been?" message, not because he wants to build something real, but because he wants to know he still has access. He needs to confirm that you still care, but you shifting your energy away from him disrupts the entire dynamic he once controlled. You're no longer predictable, you're no longer emotionally available on demand, and that unpredictability shakes him. The truth is, he never expected you to leave. He expected you to stay through the mixed signals, the half-effort, the apologies that never changed anything. He expected you to settle for less because you had before. He thought you would keep giving chances long after he stopped earning them. He mistook your loyalty for dependence, but when you walk away, he realizes you weren't staying because you needed him. You were staying because you cared, and caring is a choice you no longer make. The irony is that the moment he feels that loss is often the moment you gain your freedom. While his ego is scrambling, you're breathing easier. You're waking up with a clearer mind, feeling more like yourself, reconnecting with the parts of your life he unintentionally overshadowed. You're not waking up waiting for a text. You're not questioning where you stand. You're not trapped in emotional limbo. Your energy returns to you, and that calmness is exactly what he finds so unsettling. He may start to see all the things he took for granted, the way you listened, the effort you made, the softness you brought into his life, the stability you offered even when he didn't deserve it. But the painful truth for him is that realization always comes too late. The moment he starts to appreciate what you gave is usually when you've moved past needing anything from him. You've stepped into a level of self-respect that makes going backward impossible. His ego wanted you to stay small, stay available, stay attached. But your peace pushed you to reclaim yourself, and here's where your real power lies. You didn't walk away to get a reaction. You walked away because you outgrew the version of yourself that tolerated the bare minimum. Your silence, your distance, your emotional independence, they speak in ways words never could. In the end, he isn't haunted by losing you. He's haunted by the fact that he lost someone who didn't crumble without him. He's haunted by the strength you showed when you left. He's haunted by your peace because it's the one thing he can't influence, control, or destroy. And that is the real power he never expected you to claim. Walking away wasn't about him. It was about you reclaiming your peace, your power, and your worth. The moment you chose yourself, everything shifted, because in the end, your real strength isn't in how tightly you hold on, it's in knowing when to let go. And that's the move he never saw coming.